Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am super excited for today's video because it is going to be my July reading wrap up. And for me, I had an amazing reading month in that I read 9 books, which I have not read 9 books since like last fall. I don't think I realized that I was in like a reading slump until I realized I was in a reading slump, but I feel like I have fallen back in love with reading and books again, and I'm so excited about reading again. Spoiler, I won't be talking about it today because I read it, I technically finished it in August, but I just read my first fantasy ever since like reading Hunger Games, which is Hunger Games fantasy or is Hunger Games dystopian? I mean, I read that way back in college, which was like, I mean, that was a minute ago. But I read Fourth Wing and freaking loved it, and now I feel like I need to be like a fantasy girly. So let me know all of your fantasy recommendations down below. But if you're interested in reading and hearing about all of the books that I read throughout the month of July, stay tuned. If you have not yet subscribed, I hope you'll subscribe. Yeah, if you've not yet subscribed, I hope you'll consider subscribing before moving on. But other than that, let's jump into my July reading wrap up. All right, you guys, we kicked off July reading Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. I feel like I had picked this book up and read like a couple chapters back in the fall. Right after I finished reading like Magnolia Parks back to back to back, I read the first 3 books in this series back to back to back. That is when I was like, I will never read again because I'll never read anything as great as this. I was really struggling to find books to read after that, but I picked this back up and I really enjoyed this. This was just a very quick, easy, digestible read. I believe I gave this 4 stars. I believe I gave it 4 stars. And on a spice level, shoot, I need to like start making notes again if I'm going to be making book-ish content. Again, I want to say maybe I would give this maybe like a 3.5 chili peppers. Is that what yes, because I feel like everybody raves about Sophie Lark's spice, and I remember reading this and being like this is good, but like I was expecting like a little bit more. But I really did enjoy this. I'm excited to continue on in this series. I wasn't like, I need to go and read the next book right now, but I think when I'm looking for like either like a palate cleanser or something that is just gonna be quick and easy, something that I don't have to think too hard about, I will absolutely continue on with this series. So if you are unfamiliar, I forget, is it the Brutal Birthright series? Is that the series that this is a part of? Hopefully. But this is the first book in that series, and in this book you are following, I'm the worst and I can never remember anyone's name, Dante and what is the girl's name? It starts with an N. What is her name? Nessa, that's right. I'm like, it's something unique. You're following Dante. Is it Dante or is it something else? I think it might be something else. Ada? Yes. Oh my gosh. Nessa is Ada's sister and Callum is also a sibling. You're following Ada, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, and Callum. And Ada is part of the Griffin? No, Ada's part of the Gallo family, and then Griffin, no, sorry, Callum is part of the Griffin family, and the two are like mobsters? Mafia romance. Oh my gosh, you would think I didn't read this book. I'm very bad at describing books. But you're following Ada and Griffin. Their families are basically like feuding, like one's part of like one mafia and then one's the other, and like they're feuding. But something happens and Ada and Callum are basically like forced into an arranged marriage. They obviously hate each other, not just because of like their family's feud, but like something more happens that like makes Ada specifically like really hate Callum, and they're forced into this arranged marriage, and obviously over time a romance ensues. It's a dark romance. This is one of the few dark romances that I've read. I'm definitely not opposed to reading more. I just have not, I'm not super well versed in dark romance, but I thought it was good, and again, easy, digestible, and I would recommend. Then I read my first 5-star read of July. Is it my only? No, I had 3 5-star reads. I read Elin Hildebrandt's new book for this year, The 5-Star Weekend. I fell in love with the Hotel Nantucket last year from Elin Hildebrandt, and so I was super excited about her summer release. Perfect timing. I actually picked this up when I was up north and finished reading it when I was up north. Maybe I didn't finish it up north, but it was just like the perfect, you're by a lake, you're on the beach, perfect beach read. I will say I do think if I were to choose a book to reread, I would choose The Hotel Nantucket over The 5-Star Weekend, but I enjoyed both of them, gave them both 5 stars. So in this book, you're essentially following, so Hollis's husband just like died in this tragic car accident. Hollis is this like foodie blogger. She has a really, really popular food blog. And so her husband tragically dies, and she read somewhere online about this other woman doing this 5-star weekend where she invited 4 friends from different like eras or points of her life to all get together and like have basically a girls' weekend. So Hollis decides that she wants to do this, and you're essentially just following the 5 women in the story, as well as you're following a little bit, you get little snippets of like Hollis and her daughter's relationship. They've had a bit of a troubled relationship since Hollis's husband died, and there's this big like plot twist, sort of, if you will, that you like kind of, not like a plot twist, but this big thing about Hollis and one of the other women that go on this 5-star weekend together. There's like an overlooming thing that you know as a reader, but like Hollis doesn't necessarily know about. So you're like waiting the whole book to kind of like find out how that unravels and like ties up. And I feel like Elin Hildebrandt has just like, it just makes me feel like warm and fuzzy inside. Like it's just like a fun, cozy, feel good sort of read, and I absolutely loved this one. So if you're looking for a good beach read, highly recommend this one from Elin Hildebrandt. Then I read this gem, which is Nora Goes Off Script. And I heard someone talk about this last year, and it's kind of always been like on my radar, but it just recently, I believe, recently-ish, came out in softcover. And so I decided to pick it up. Then it also was buy one, get one half off at Barnes & Noble. So I was like, even better. But the only thing I really knew going into this was that there was a woman who's recently divorced. She sounded kind of like a hot mess, and then a basically Hollywood star, and the two of them like kind of form a connection, and I was super intrigued by that. I'm currently in the process of going through divorce, so just I find that topic really relatable now in books, and I am more interested in books where people are, you know, going through or have gone through a divorce. So I was super excited to read about this, and I just thought this was the most cute, wholesome little short read ever. Again, kind of perfect for just like an easy, quick, beachy, pool, lakeside, ocean, like just a quick, easy, feel-good read. So in this book, you are following Nora. She writes movies or scripts for like the equivalent of what I would assume is like the Lifetime network, like Lifetime movies, essentially. And she decides, I think if I'm remembering correctly, she's having like not writer's block, but she's really struggling to write her next script, but she's really struggling for money as her husband has just left, and she has 2 kids. And so she basically like writes this script and sends it to her editor, who's like, basically she's on a deadline. She has to send something to her editor. It kind of gives me vibes of like Al Cosimo's, why can't Finley Donovan, gives me like Ghost vibes a little bit. So she sends the script off to her agent, and it's basically like a retelling of like what she's gone through in her life to lead her to where she's at. And the screenplay picks up, and it ends up being like this big movie production. And so then Leo is this like Hollywood big shot. He is playing, you know, a character in Nora's movie, and they are filming at Nora's house. He asks Nora if he can stay at her house for like a week after they wrap shooting, because he just needs to get away, essentially. Like he wants to live a normal life, and it's just like the two of them bonding together and kind of like forming this friendship at first. And then Nora's like super hesitant about her feelings, and Leo falls for her, and it's just like this really, really cute romance. Then something happens. It truly, like, this was a very bingeable book. It's super short, and I read it in like 2 sittings, and the only reason I didn't read it in 1 sitting is because like I had to go to work. So I was just such a fan of this. I have her newest book, I believe, which is Same Time Next Summer, which I do want to read in the month of August. I'm super excited to read that just because this just gave me the warm fuzzies as well. So I really enjoyed that one. Then the fourth book I read was Beach Read by Emily Henry, and I went into this with the highest expectations and the highest hopes because I feel like people love this book. It's like so many people's 5-star reads. And I read Emily Henry's not Beach Read, this is Beach Read, People We Meet on Vacation. I read it in the past, loved it in the past, but I also like was not, it was like one of the first books I had read in so long. So I was like, like, did I love it, or like, did I love it because I didn't have a lot to compare it to? So I was super excited to read this. And I will say I just found myself like a little bit bored. I hate saying that because I feel like there's such a fan following for this book, but the first half of the book I was really excited about it. I think part of that was just like anticipating this was going to be a 5-star read. Really like the first half. When we got to about the midway point, I was just like kind of bored by the story. And I will say I personally didn't feel that much of a connection to either January or August in this book. So you were following January and Gus, and they are essentially like college rivals. They're both book writers. Gus writes like, I'm gonna say literary fiction, and then January writes these romance novels, and they've always kind of feuded in college. In this book, the two meet again at like unexpectedly, and I'm like, what can I say without spoiling it? January is like struggling to write her next book, and so her and Gus sort of like come up with this like competition-ish bet, if you will. And January is supposed to write literary fiction, Gus is gonna write a romance novel. They're gonna like basically switch genres and see how it goes. And on Fridays they go do activities that will help January write her literary fiction, and then on Saturdays they go on these like romantic activities so that Gus can get inspiration for his romance novel. I was just like really bored by both of these characters. I wasn't connected. I didn't find either of them super intriguing. I will say January's story I was intrigued by, but like Gus was just, even the way that he was described, this is gonna sound so shallow of me, but I didn't feel like attracted to Gus like at all. Like he was sweet, but like I didn't feel attracted to him, so I just did not feel connected to the story, and I ended up giving this a 3-star. In terms of spice, there is some spice in this. I would probably give it like a 2.5 or a 3-star for spice. Like it was fine. It was fine, but I'm in no rush to ever read this again personally. And I'm so sorry if this is a 5-star read for you, but I just did not love that one. Then thankfully I did read my second 5-star read of the month. So I picked up Powerless by Elsie Silver. I had already read Flawless and Heartless, and I was so excited to read Powerless because I was super excited to read Jasper's story. So this is the 3rd book in the Chestnut Spring series, and if you're unfamiliar with the series, I believe it will be a 5-book series, but it's like small town ranch cowboy vibes, which y'all know I love country music, maybe, if you follow my makeup channel. Love country music, love the vibe of this. But I was really excited to get Jasper's story because he is this like brooding, emotional, like mysterious NHL hockey player, and you just get like little crumblings of him in the previous 2 books. So I was very excited to like learn more about Jasper. So in this book, you're following Jasper and Sloane. They are childhood friends. Essentially, Jasper is like a part of, why can't I think of their last name? He's like a part of the boys' family because something tragic happens in Jasper's childhood, and he moves in with like Rhett, Bo. Why can't I think of them? Rhett, Bo. I just read, oh my gosh, Rhett, Bo. Why can't I think of the middle one's name? It was from the book Heartless, and that was like my least favorite. He and Willow, you guys know. Okay, if you've read, you read. Anyway, he's like a part of the boys' family. And Sloane is a childhood friend. Her mother is the sister to Bo and Rhett's wife? Bo and Rhett's dad's wife. Oh my gosh. So essentially Bo and Rhett's dad's wife has passed away, but Sloane's mom is her sister. Anyway, so every summer Sloane would spend, you know, the summer, I can't remember if it was a week or the summer, with like on the ranch with the boys. So that's how her and Jasper know each other. At the beginning of this book, I had filmed a reading vlog, you guys, but then I just like wasn't feeling confident in it, so I deleted all the footage, and I'm like so sad about it. But I do want to film at least one reading vlog, because I think it should just be fun. Let me know if you'd be interested in a reading vlog in August about something. I don't know what I'll read. Maybe my summer TBR, we'll see. But anyway, so at the beginning of this book, and this is not really spoiling anything, but so you find out Sloane is getting married, and Jasper is not happy about it because he just thinks that the person Sloane's marrying is essentially like not a good person, which he really is not a good person. Like, he's a disgusting human being, in my opinion. So at the beginning of the book, Jasper essentially like sneaks Sloane out of her own wedding. Something happens and Sloane's like, I literally can't marry this person. So Jasper and her get away, and then they end up going on this road trip, and it's just like them rekindling their like friendship. And obviously it's a romance novel, we all know, like a romance ensues, but I just love their relationship because I feel like both of these characters are so deep, and I feel like there's just so much more than like surface level between the two of them. I feel like they have such a good connection, and I really loved reading their story. Gave this a 5-star. I love the Chestnut Spring series. I love Elsie Silver's writing. Her reading is so easy, digestible, so bingeable. Like, it's just, I can just sit and read for hours, and like it feels like no time has passed. So if you like romance, I highly recommend. I gave this 5 stars. I would give this probably like a 4.5 on the spice level too. Like, I feel like Elsie Silver just does spice right, and she writes like 20 pages of it, like not even an exaggeration. She writes pages and pages and pages of it, and I'm like, yes girl, give me all those spicy details. So then I was super excited to get back into the Never After series, and this is the 4th book in the series. This is Twisted. I have really enjoyed the Never After series. I loved Wretched. I never know if it's Wretched or Wretched. Loved that, loved Hooked, so good. Scarred was like fine, like it was good, but like not my favorite. And so I was super excited to read Twisted. This is an Aladdin reimagining. If you're unfamiliar with the Never After series, they're essentially childhood fairy tale reimaginings, not retellings, but reimaginings. And it's usually like, it's always like what happened. It's like, it's a dark romance, and like the bad guy wins, if you will. So like, think Captain Hook in Hooked. Like, what would happen if like he came out on top? But in Twisted, you are following Yasmin, and her dad he owns this like diamond empire. He's super sick, dying of cancer, wants to marry Yasmin off so that he has someone to kind of take over his diamond business. Then you have Julian, who is essentially Yasmin's dad's like right-hand man, his assistant, and he really wants to take over the diamond empire. And he finds out that the only way that that's going to happen is if he and Yasmin gets married. So he plots for them to get married, and it's kind of like an arranged marriage, like forced proximity, enemies to lovers sort of situation. I will say this is probably my least favorite out of the 4 that I've read. I was really disappointed in this one because I was like, ooh, like a diamond empire, like I feel like this sounds so good, like I feel like this is gonna be my favorite. And I also think this may have been the longest. This is almost 400 pages. I was just bored by this one. I was just really bored by this one. I did give this, I think, 3 stars, maybe 3.5. like it was fine, but going in with the expectation of like how much I enjoyed the other books in her series, there were certain parts of this that like I literally didn't care. I will say Julian Fauci, I don't know if that's how you, Julian Ferrasi, I will take him any day. Like brooding bad boy, but like super, like, I will meet Julian in my bedroom. That is what I will do. But Yasmin, I literally just could care less about. So I just did not connect to this book as I have others in her series. I'm so excited for the one that just came out. It is literally sitting in an Amazon. I have it, but it's sitting in an Amazon package because I plan to do a book haul at the end of August where I unpackage books. And I figure if it's in my Amazon package, it's safe from me reading it. I need to get through my summer TBR. I need to get through it, but I'm so excited because I think that one it's like the Gargoyles. Why can't I think of it? The Gargoyles, and I can't remember. I think there might be like a priest and like, a dancer. Like, I'm super excited for that book. I can't even think of the name of it right now. I can see the cover. It's like gold and I can, yeah, I don't know what I'm saying anymore. So excited for that one. But Twisted, not my favorite. Okay, my camera battery died if I've moved just a little bit. But the next book that I read was Shatter Me. And I feel like this video is gonna be full of tons of unpopular opinions, but I only gave Shatter Me a 3 out of 5 star. I wanted to love this because so many people love this series, and I feel like the books within this series are relatively short, so I'm like, oh, like a quick read. I started this last fall, like November time as well. Didn't love it, picked it back up, and I was just not that interested in it. Like, I found the majority of this book to be quite boring, and like, I just feel like Juliet, like, I just don't care that much about. So if you are somehow unfamiliar with the Shatter Me series, in this book, it's told from Juliet's perspective, and Juliet essentially has like a lethal touch. Like, she's always had this lethal touch growing up. So this dystopian government, or like this government wants, the government, yeah, the, what are they called, the something with an R, it's a forgettable book, something with the rebellion, I don't know. Essentially, the government wants to use her as a weapon. She obviously doesn't want that. She's like this good spirit of her thoughts, she annoys me. That's what it is. I don't really care for Juliet, so it's really hard for me to get into this. And I truly, I don't know that I want to continue on in the series. I do, because I feel like people say it gets better as you go on, but like, I don't know if I can bring myself to continue to read the books. You guys will have to let me know if you've read Shatter Me and if you kind of felt so about the first book. It was not interesting until like the very last little bit. And while I did find the last little bit of the book entertaining, most of it I just found really boring, and I just do not care for Juliet, like, at all. All right, guys, and then the 8th book that I read was Heartless by Elsie Silver, book 4 in the, sorry, not Heartless, Reckless, from the Chestnut Spring series. This is book number 4. In this book, you are following Theo and Winter. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. I would probably give this either 4 or 4. This one wasn't as spicy as some of the other books within the series. I'd probably give this like a 3.5 or a 4 on the spice level. But when I read book 1, I absolutely hated Winter. Winter is Summer's sister. In this book, you're following Winter and Theo. Winter is a sister of Summer who is married to Rhett, and you're following her story. And then Theo is a bull rider. He's essentially like, his dad was this really popular bull rider that unfortunately died in a bull riding accident, and he's essentially like Rhett's protege. That's how like everybody connects. So Winter and Summer have like this not great relationship, but they're trying to mend things. Winter comes into town. She like runs into Theo at a gas station, and then they end up at the same place for like a holiday dinner. And Winter, what I love about Elsie Silver's female characters specifically, I feel like they're really like spicy in sense of like, they just have a very defined personality where like they don't let people walk all over them. They're like very like, stand up for themselves, like they'll spit back, like they're spitfires is like the word that I would use, which I just absolutely love. So Winter has had this really hard life, essentially. Not a great relationship with her mom or her dad or her sister, and then she gets married to this awful human being. So she just had a really hard life. One of the tropes in this book, there is an unexpected pregnancy between her and Theo. So essentially they form a bond because there's this unexpected pregnancy and they have a child to take care of and to raise. Theo is quite possibly like, it's so hard because I do love like a good bad boy. Like I'm thinking of like Julian from Magnolia Parks. I'm thinking of Christian and BJ, all from the Magnolia universe. And then I'm thinking of like Julian Fauci Barassi from Twisted. I do love me a good bad boy, but Theo, like in real life, like yes, please. He is like the sweetest, kindest, just heartwarming book boyfriend, as well as just like his moments with like his daughter are just so sweet. It had me swooning the entire time. I read this book so quickly. I loved he and Winter's relationship, and I will say that it's really hard for me to choose my favorite book. I would be between probably Reckless, Powerless, and Flawless. Heartless I didn't love, even though that's like everybody's favorite. Oh, it's so hard to choose, but I just ate up every moment in this book. So again, just like highly recommend the Chestnut Spring series. Elsie Silver, love her so much. I'm definitely interested in reading her backlist, and that was a great read, a 5-star for July. And then the last book that I read, I actually listened to. I never do audiobooks, but I've heard so many great things about the audiobook for I'm Glad My Mom Died from Jeanette McCurdy, because Jeanette McCurdy is the narrator of this book. So I listened to it basically while driving to work, and I really enjoyed this. I was very intrigued. I was super hooked, super roped in. I was like excited to drive to work and drive home because I was excited to continue to listen to this story. It is super triggering, so I would, if you have not yet read the book and you're interested, I would definitely search trigger warnings. Specifically, she goes massively in detail about her eating disorder, which is extremely triggering. And it's just a heartbreaking, like honestly her story is just like incredibly heartbreaking. When I went up to Goodreads to like put my dates in that I read the book, I was like, do I want to rate this or do I not? And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go the route that most people I see do it and not rate a memoir based on someone's life. But I was reading through like some of the 1-star reads, and I was like, just like kind of taken aback by some of the reviews of like the 1-star basically being like, she's like playing the victim and just like a Nickelodeon child star making money off of writing bad things about her mom. And I'm like, really? That's like what you took away from this book? She essentially, like, I'm sure you guys, everyone and their mother has talked about this book. It's old news. It came out a year ago and I finally just got around to it. But essentially Jeanette McCurdy is just like recounting her childhood and her upbringing, and really not caring to be a child actor, but really being kind of forced into it from her mom, and just like her relationship with her mom. And there are so many things that I connected to with the book. Not like having a bad relationship with my parents, I had a great upbringing, but just like being like a people pleaser and like things like that, or like there are like certain OCD tendencies that she would talk about, and I'm like, not that was triggering, but I'm like, ooh, like that makes me really sad, because I have like a few small OCD tendencies that like I just like related to, like she was like, I had to tap something 5 times, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I relate so much to that. Not that I like have diagnosed OCD, but I just have like these small tendencies, and I'm like, ooh, I relate to that. Like that feels kind of icky. So it was a tough book to listen to, but just like a really inspiring listen to, or just like an interesting listen if you're interested at all in just like Hollywood or childhood stars or anything like that. I think I want to try and listen to like one autobiography, memoir, what have you, every single month going forward. That used to be my genre. Like before I really got into reading, I loved to read like self-help, motivation, memoirs, autobiographies. I think those are just really interesting to learn about just like people's lives. But I was finding that I read these really slowly, but listening to it, I think I want to try and do that one a month. So if you guys have any good, I specifically like a memoir or an autobiography, leave your comments down below. Let me know what I should listen to next. But those are the 9 books that I read / listened to throughout the month of July. Would love to know if you had any 5-star reads in the month of July. What were they? What recommendations do you have? Did you read a terrible book that like I should definitely skip? Let me know in the comments. Other than that, thank you guys so much for sticking around to watch and for supporting me, as you guys always do. I love you guys so much, and I'll catch you in my next video. Bye.